I was scribbling in my notes. And I was like, because, you know, it's like I
It's right here, cut into my arm.
Yeah, right. Oh, man. Why does Future Mike have a scar on his arm? That kind of thing. Just crazy. No, Future Mike's wearing bandages. Past Mike has a scar. No, that doesn't work. It's the other way around.
We got to do more of like a mentalist stage show where like you FedEx me your G1 score, but you did it like 6 weeks ago, or like don't open until 2023. Back to the Future.
Yeah. Are you Marty McFly? We had a bet around the office that you wouldn't even be here. The Doc's alive! He's
7.76.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, kid, what does that mean?
Yeah.
It means I just watched Transformers Animated.
Yeah. What's alive?
Yeah, right. All right, well, let's
yeah, I love it.
Let's go. Let's go.
Let's go.
Autobots, transform and roll out.
Back for another thrilling episode of Two Mikes, Two Furious Animated Transformers, where you are Mike and two guys who have almost the same name talk about Transformers Animated one episode at a time from two different points of view. My name is Mike Seibert. I have never watched Transformers Animated in its entirety before this project. And joining me on this animated adventure is serial rewatcher, Transformers Animated superfan, my Spark Soul brother. It's Michael Andrews.
Hello, hello. Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me as usual.
Yeah, man, this is a big one today. You could say that it's all been leading to this. I'm super excited. So we are going to be talking about the 2-part season 1 finale, Megatron Rising, parts 1 and 2 respectively. Man, it's all been leading to this. I
got chills. I got chills just thinking about it right now.
You know, later on when we get into the episode discussion, I'm going to call out a lot of my viewing experience watching this episode. But for now, I'll leave it with, like, there were several times where I'm glad I was in a room by myself after hours with nobody around, because there was just like, oh my God, it's happening. And I'm like,
I love this version of you where you like have this explosive reaction and then you run back to quick write some liner notes, stage direction, like jumped out of a seat here.
Spoilers alerts. There are many times in my notes where I write in all caps, "Holy shit!" exclamation point. Oh, yeah. So that is definitely a thing. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I don't know if I have a little bit of like the summer ending blues a bit. I mean, I loved my summertime. I'm wearing a hoodie right now. I like that we're getting into the September weather a little bit, not to date our evergreen show, but I like this time of year. I'm getting excited.
Yeah.
And I guess we already dated a little bit with your birthday episode, so people know what time it is.
Exactly. They do know what time it is. And it is officially fall. We just had the first day of fall not too long ago. It is currently raining here in Seattle, to the surprise of absolutely nobody. It doesn't rain here as much as you think, but that's neither here nor there.
Somewhere in the sky, Black Arachnia has plugged the key into her device and is spreading her cyber venom. The trees are turning. Yep. It's all coming full circle.
Oh, and so that make me a wizened little munchie, little Sari Sumdac Yoda looking zombie
old
creature.
Lady Sari.
Old Lady Sari, exactly.
Get off my lawn.
You darn kids. You're a kid, just an old lady kid. It's very weird.
She spits in the punch bowl and her dentures come out. It's a whole thing.
Speaking of spitting in the punch bowl, so in our last episode, When Nature Calls, we talked about my birthday. It's interesting how birthdays have become so thematic to the fiber of this show, because we both, you and I, Michael Anders, we're both unabashed birthday divas. So
little birthday boys.
Yeah, so we're recording, when we're recording this, it's still September. So so for me, it's still my birthday month. So I still got them hopping up and down birthday diva vibes. But yeah, so I did, before we got too much further into the meat of things, because we've got a whole lot to talk about. It is going to be a jam-packed show, but I did want to follow up a little bit on my birthday celebrations, and the prophecy was fulfilled. I don't know if folks saw this on our Two Mikes, Two Furious social channels. I think I put it on the Instagram also at Two Mikes, Two Furious with twos, number twos. But I did indeed, on my birthday toy hunt, I found a G2 Universe Grimlock, the Tiger Force Grimlock from Walmart, and I dressed for the 90s that day, because like I had a very loud shirt on. I got the Melon Mountain Dew, and I got my Tiger Force Grimlock, that Legacy Evolution Walmart exclusive G2 Universe Grimlock, and that thing is, you get the thing out of the box, and it feels like Vincent Vega opening up the briefcase in Pulp Fiction, because like that thing is just screaming yellow. We talked a lot about that Lemon Sideswipe that's just so yellow. Grimlock is the same thing, but it's a giant chunky ass leader class figure, so it's just like, like the bright yellow and the teal tiger stripes. It is an amazing figure. Gorgeous. And I am so glad I found it. So I'm basically line complete, at least, well, as far as I want to be, because now I've got Grimlock, Toxitron, Cloudcover, Melon Mirage, Orange Crush Jazz. I got him off of Pulse, and of course, nice. Lemon Sideswipe. The only two I didn't get and don't plan on getting is the sprite colored laser cycle. I don't care for the mold. I have no attachment to the character. I don't care. And Fruit Punch Dead End is impossible to find. And quite frankly, even whether he's hard to find or a shelf warmer, I really don't care, because the reason why I like those other characters is how loud the colors are. It's just Dead End in a slightly brighter red.
Yeah.
It's like the burnt maroon. He's more of a, Hawaiian Punch, Fruit Punch, more electric red. But it's as I put in a post somewhere, it's not quote unquote out there enough for my taste. Whereas all of the other ones are just crazy bright and neon.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like you could drink the other ones, and that one not so much, I think, is the differentiator there.
Exactly.
I don't know, I've been comparing them to like fruit juice or something. I feel it makes me like viscerally thirsty now when you talk about the toys.
Well, absolutely. I mean, they all have like candy juice flavors. It's like you got you got a blue raspberry ramjet, you got a watermelon Mirage, a orange crush jazz, a lemon sideswipe, a lime prime, and Toxitron, grape and lemon, I guess. He's basically Constructicon colors. Yeah. And I don't know why I would call Grimlock, because like he's kind of the same color scheme as Sideswipe, just bigger and a dinosaur. So I guess he's kind of like a lemon Baja Blast as well, I guess.
Yeah, there we go.
So there you go. Ew, lemon Baja
Starburst, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. But anyway, terrific toys. I'm very grateful that I've acquired him, and I will be honest, I need to slow the hell down on toy buying. Unrelated to Transformers, Target has been putting a bunch of stuff on clearance lately, so I've been cleaning up like on G.I. Joe Classified series. I got myself like a scrap iron for half price, and nice. and some Star Wars stuff too. I got myself a Cobb Vanth V Cad Bane 2-pack for half price, and so I have more toys than I need. Like, it's to the point where I was like, maybe I need to slow down. But
I think that's part of the birthday letdown experience, right? You got to go hard in the lead up to your birthday, and then you have to go whoa and pump the brakes so that you can appreciate it all next year when you inevitably do it again. Right?
It's true.
Let me ask you quick. Have you read the Transformers versus G.I. Joe, Tom Scioli, kind of it done in that like retro 80s comic book style? Really hand drawn kind of feel?
The art is spectacular and gorgeous and transcendent. I have a really hot take, and I hope this doesn't get me too much heat. It's a little too weird for my taste. Like,
it is very weird.
I mean, I was all for it initially. In fact, I'll be honest, I don't think I actually finished the miniseries. So I was buying them single issue, and maybe like if I picked up a collector's edition, like a trade paperback, and went through it, maybe it would resonate a little harder. But like, I was having a really hard time with it. Like, it was fun. Again, the art is incredible, but like, I need kind of a cogent, coherent story, and it's just too bonkers for my taste. I will say, however, speaking of Tom Scioli, I love the hell out of that GoBots miniseries he did in that in that same style. So I can't articulate what the difference is for like why Transformers versus G.I. Joe was too weird for me, but GoBots is like just weird enough. Maybe it's because it's one of those things, since GoBots is a little more of a dormant property, I feel like you have more leeway to go buck wild with it. So I think I was open to it. I don't have a whole lot of tether or nostalgia for GoBots, so I was more interested in a gonzo take, and it doesn't disappoint.
Yeah. Well, I think you nailed it, because I think part of it is Transformers versus G.I. Joe was a longer run, or planned to be a longer run. So I think that kind of led to the nature of, well, we can start a little more disjointed. We're going to get back to this, but not for several episodes. Whereas the GoBots thing was a planned, consolidated 5 issues or whatever it was. But I was going to say, I think with your kind of coming back to like G.I. Joes and kind of getting a little more nostalgic about the 80s ones and what we've been doing with Transformers, like I wonder if it's time for you to revisit like the collected edition, as you were talking about, because I didn't read any of it until the hardcover came out that collected the whole series, and I was able to read right through it, and I was like, wow, it was really powerful storytelling, and I've come back to it a few times. So, and I also think there's some really like Floro Dairy-esque art in there that kind of speaks to the concept art from the TF-86 movie. I've always wanted to talk about it with like you and the APDC guys, but you guys haven't gotten through the series. So,
but I think you're right. I think if I pick up a collected edition and I do it in one shot, I think it would resonate harder with me, because like, and if I remember correctly, those issues didn't necessarily ship regularly. So it would be like, 1 month, then maybe a couple months, then maybe a few months. So it was kind of disjointed from like a release schedule perspective as well. And I think that kind of influenced my feeling on it as well at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, enough of that. Sorry. I've always been curious about that. I'm glad we brought it up. But
absolutely.
You just had a birthday. Your show just had a birthday. MSRP.
Yeah. So we just recently had a celebration live stream for episode 400 of my other podcast that you had the opportunity to be a part of. Thanks for being my buddy. That meant a lot.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, it was really cool to sit in with those guys and kind of rap about. I learned some things about you that I didn't know. Some of your origin stories that apparently I had taken for granted all these years. Those are really cool to hear. It's kind of a history of Mike Seibert Part 1, if you will.
Yeah. It was a fun one. You got to learn about how Bobby Skullface videos make me literally nauseous, and. One of my favorite stories, and actually it's my favorite story because of your reaction to it, is the whole pizza incident at TFCon Chicago.
Oh my gosh. where I'm still a little pissed about that.
And it's funny because like I tell that story from a completely different vantage point. I was like, yeah, man, you know, they closed the restaurant and they weren't going to serve us any food. And they said, well, hey, man, you know, if I order pizza, can I eat it? Yeah, sure, whatever. And just nonchalantly over my shoulder, like it's an inconvenience. So, oh yeah, you know, just having pizza with Jim Sorensen and Aaron Archer and a bunch of other cool fan artists and the APDC
the angry
guys.
Archer himself,
yes.
And the god of Transformers animated content, Jim Sorensen.
Yeah.
And just no biggie.
Well, and also keeping in mind in this context, I didn't know that at that point. I know Aaron Archer more for his work on the design side for like, you know, he did like a lot of the Unicron trilogy stuff and he's an artist in his own right and just a cool dude to talk to. And I have formed a relationship with Jim Sorensen as well. And really where he and I got connected was after that big reveal of the first original rough draft of Transformers the movie that Ron Friedman did, this like 300-page Megillah that has like, you know, different characters and like a snake that turns into a train or a train that turns into a snake or whatever.
There's a little bit of cocaine left in the spine of the book.
Well, his name is Rails. So, but anyway, so it's like, so, and this was in fall of 2022, so almost a year ago actually to this. But point being is like I wonder how I would be now as opposed to then, because like I again had no engagement with Transformers animated. And it's interesting, like I actually like in watching this episode of Megatron Rising, I watched it on Pluto TV. Pluto TV, by the way, gives you captions, closed captioning, which Tubi doesn't. And I just learned this. My point being is like when you watch on Tubi, it goes straight to the next episode. I've never sat through the credits before. So it's like it was interesting going through the credits and seeing like the specific voice casting, and you see like Aaron Archer's name come up like a handful of different times and some other names as well. Cool. But it was kind of interesting to kind of have that experience here now fresh. But yeah, anyway, MSRP 400 was a huge success. It's on my YouTube channel. It is almost 5 hours of live streaming content. But yeah, it was such a great time. And I'm hoping, like the thing that I said when I wrapped up the stream is like, maybe I need to do stuff like that more often, is just like plan ahead, pick a date and just say, hey man, you know, casual drop in and drop out, because that's what was so cool about it. That's what was so fun about it. It was a tight group of a handful of folks, but then other folks just kind of came and went, and it was really neat.
Well, you can't get more old school radio than a switchboard full of random callers, right? And bouncing them in, and you're on with Mike Seibert. Let's do this thing. I love that nature of kind of the live streaming.
Absolutely. So we talked toys a little bit earlier with wrapping up my birthday shenanigans, but that is not the only toy legislation. And this was something where we were messaging each other even before these toys were officially announced. It's like, oh man, well, we have to talk about this, right?
We would be remiss if we didn't talk about this.
Absolutely. It would be a huge miss, because it'd be like, oh man, I got to hear what the two mics think about this, especially given some of the discourse that we've seen on our Twitter. But Hasbro PulseCon was a few weeks ago, and they revealed a number of Transformers goodies, including like some just wild stuff. There's some crazy character choices coming up, but they've announced that the third wave of the Legacy toy line, the Transformers Generations Legacy, started with Legacy, then became Legacy Evolution, and now the third part of that is called United. So it's Legacy United, and basically in this toy line, what they've been doing is they've been pulling different characters from across the Transformers multiverse through the space bridge into this coherent toy line. And it's interesting at a time where we're just now getting ready to get new Transformers comics in the form of the Skybound stuff. We've already seen a bit of that in Void Rivals, but it's fascinating to me to listen to the Hasbro folks, like the marketing team and the design team, and those folks kind of talk about this lore that they've kind of created that, like, just internally for themselves, that there's just no fiction to support. Like, it's
Right.
one of the things, I mean, going off book here a little bit, one of the things that is kind of weird to me is that we're in a period where there's licensed media, so, you know, like cartoons and comic books and whatever. There was a time where for this example, I'll just use Transformers and G.I. Joe just to keep it Hasbro, where the cartoons and comics were structured to sell toys. You know, very, very 1980s deregulated Reagan, you know, kind of crass consumerism, that type of thing. But what's fascinating to me is in recent years, more and more, the media doesn't really seem to have anything to do with the toys. And I think that's very odd. Like, I think I noticed this most recently with the Netflix War for Cybertron trilogy. It's like one of the big things that I enjoyed about that show or liked aesthetically about that show is that they basically were the toys. Like, to the point where they have like 5mm ports on them and like blast effects posts. So I thought that was cool. I mean, your mileage on that show may vary. There's a whole lot to be critical about, but I liked that it was like, oh, this is a cartoon meant to sell toys. Great. But then they started.
Well, and I'll say, and it worked. I mean, I would watch those, and then I'd be like, I gotta run to the store and grab something. Like, I just need that fix. Like, it worked.
Yeah,
on me.
And that's the way it should be. And it's like, and it made me more invested in characters than I would have otherwise. I mean, I have one of those Netflix Alita 1 figures based on the strength of that performance from Lindsay Rousseau and bringing that character to life. It's like, I'm not Lita, I'm not the internet's number one Alita 1 stan, but like, that made me care about that character in a way I never had before. So, but where I'm going with that is like, into Legacy, Hasbro seems very kind of rudderless. Like, so there's no cartoon, like the team that did War for Cybertron trilogy for Netflix pitched a sequel series for Legacy, and Netflix passed on it. It wasn't exactly what they were looking for. As the story goes from showrunner FJ DeSanto, they pitched it, Hasbro liked it, and it wasn't exactly what Netflix was looking for in show content. So I don't know exactly what that means. You know, I dabble in Transformers gotcha journalism sometimes. So it's like I'm at like TFCon LA in 2022 or maybe 2021, I think. Maybe it doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm at a panel with the entire War for Cybertron cast. Like, it's a very Last Supper looking thing. There's like 20 people on that stage. It was great. It was a terrific panel for a show that not everybody liked. And you couldn't tell in that room because the enthusiasm was infectious. It's like, you would think that this was like Transformers the movie or something, or Transformers anime, like something that was beloved because of just like the raw enthusiasm. But anyway, FJ had mentioned that, we pitched Legacy, and that the tweet I put out had kind of gotten misconstrued and misquoted. It's like, nobody hated anything. It's just Netflix passed on it because that's not what they wanted. But
well, yeah, and I think
anyway,
to your point of being rudderless, it's almost in a good way. And maybe the reason they passed on it is because they wanted to have a little more freedom to just grab from any storyline without or grab from any Transformers media without having to sort of, shoehorn it into a storyline. But I think it's rudderless in a good way a little bit, in that we're getting some of these really like obscure, chase from rescue bots. I mean, that's a wild thing that I didn't even know I needed. And it's like, I really appreciate that, though, that now we're getting a sort of an official toy of him.
Yeah, well, and we're getting Magmatron and like all this other just wacky stuff. But like, I apologize. That was a very, very long way of saying that the animated bots are coming to Legacy United. So first we saw leaks of Bumblebee, and there was no shortage of discourse about that. And then I'm like, you know what? It looks fine. We'll see what happens. It's like, if you think this bee is working for you, wait till you see Optimus. And it's like, I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And then the leaks happened. And even just based on the links, I was just like, oh my. And then so on the eve of Hasbro PulseCon, Hasbro partnered with a Screen Rant, I think it was, to do like an official reveal. They rolled out poster art with both Transformers Animated Optimus and Bumblebee, just looking just awesome. Like I love that corner of the poster that they have where it's like Bumblebee's doing like almost like a Spider-Man like jump into the action type of thing. And of course, my dude Optimus is just swinging that heckin' axe, and it's just like, oh my.
Yeah.
I mean, there are few figures anymore that get me to insta-buy. That was an insta-buy for me. Well, I'll talk about Optimus first, then we could talk about Bumblebee, and we can kind of talk about how the Transformers animated universe fits into Legacy United. But that Optimus, and it's so funny coming off of an episode where we spent so much time talking about what vintage Transformers animated Optimus can we make for Mike Seibert so that he gets a great figure and a killer axe. Cause it's like, why doesn't he have that same fixation on the grapplers? Grapplers are cool, but no, all he wants is the axe. This Legacy United animated universe Optimus Prime looks like it gives me everything I want. Like the proportions are there. It's like it's a Voyager class figure, so he's taller, heftier, bigger, more dense. So you get some of those exaggerated Derek J. Wyatt proportions. Like I love that his shoulders are so broad, that his chest is so big, while still kind of having like a tapered in waist. Like it really kind of tries to honor that design aesthetic while still fitting in with the blueprint of the current Transformers Generations toy line, where there's like a certain body type and a certain scale, and those toys fit magnificently well together. And I'll make no bones about it, I was in love. I love everything about that figure.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like you called and Hasbro answered. They're like, Mike Seibert needs a proper Optimus with that axe, and they delivered. So.
Yeah, and like, so there was so much discourse about like, oh man, does because like there's two different pictures. Like one, Optimus has the axe with an extendable handle, and then other one where he has a shorter one, both of which are play patterns from the show. Like we've seen both. So it's like, I mean, I would have liked it to be telescopic, but it doesn't need to be. It's fine just having a handle on there, but it gives me the thing that I want, in that it's got that pop of clear blue plastic that I think is missing from some of the other axes that we were talking about. And it's got a very noticeable thruster on the back of it. Those are the key elements. I need a thruster, I need a blue blade, and I need an extended handle. And this gives me all three. Oh yeah, and the figure's great too. Right. And
especially after the episode we're about to talk about, really,
oh my God,
you really need to have that proper representation of the axe.
Absolutely. I hope, and I couldn't tell from the pictures, that there's going to be a 3mm post on there to where you could pop a blast effect in there.
Oh yeah. There must be some way at least.
Yeah, which incidentally, I call them blast effects. I've heard that folks in the community call them blooshes. I don't call them that. I just call them blast effects.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Good.
Yeah, shaking trees for like looking for controversy where there isn't any. I'm like blooshes, get out of here. Just they're blast effects. Let's be adults here. But anyway, like
if you like the term blooshes, call in at drop our number.
2mikes2furious@gmail.com or at 2mikes2furious on some of the social medias, but none of the new stuff.
Right.
But anyway, like, one of the other things we had talked about is that one of my weirder, hotter takes from talking about Transformers Animated is I've acclimated to Optimus Prime with a mouth and a face to the point where he uses his battle mask so infrequently. It's almost weird when he puts it on because he's so emotive with his face.
Yeah.
And the face sculpt that they got on that Optimus is French kiss, chef's kiss for sure.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like it's perfect.
Totally.
It's like just enough chin. I don't know. It just really, really speaks to me.
Yeah,
so anyway, so yes.
Cool.
So I've already got a pre-order in for that. I am getting that figure for sure. I did not pre-order the Bumblebee. Oh. I like it, but it doesn't blow my hair back the same way that the Optimus does. And maybe it's because I have a TFA Bumblebee already to scratch that itch. But and it's interesting, and I would love to get your take on it as well. But like watching this episode, so like seeing the reveal, then watching an episode, the proportions on that body type for that Legacy United figure are pretty darn close to the animation model. Like there are times where Bumblebee is here in this episode with kind of less exaggerated shoulders and more kind of less exaggerated character design. I don't know if you noticed that, but there's a lot of times where like when he's like slipping into the elevator and stuff like that, like his body looks a lot like that figure does, which I was not expecting to see. It was weird, but I've been talking. Yeah. I've been talking for a lot. What do you
really?
What do you think about these figures? Yeah, like I'm still doing a 400th episode live stream or something like that. It would be interesting to go through that episode, see how much other people are actually talking, because I bet you it's not a lot. I'm like, yeah. So I'm going to read some question cards from you. Let me tell you a story about where these come from. Blah 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 blah. And then that
classic hour it took you to get to the pod decks after announcing pod decks was just indicative of the Mike Seibert experience, I think.
But so, please, it's the Mike Seibert Radio experience, according to my buddy Aaron over at APDC. Shouts out to that guy.
Okay, well, here's my take on those toys so that we can get to the episode proper. But no, I haven't pre-ordered any of them. But what I will say I like about... Let's start with the Optimus for me, because one of the things that really stood out to me was the axe. There's something just sort of animated about the proportions of it that is just cool. And I really just think Hasbro is doing the Lord's work when they include the animated stuff in this toy line, because animated by its nature is so stylized and unique. And the whole point of this legacy toy line is to sort of make this uniform kind of playability and style of toys. So like, it's really tough. I would be nervous to be the guy that sits down and be like, hey, I'm going to do a Transformers animated thing. Plus, there's been such a huge gap between the Transformers animated original toys and these. It's like people are thirsty. They almost don't even want like a cool stylized. They almost will just take a reissue of the original toys at this point. So to putting them out is a little bit of a risk, I think, but a cool one. I'm glad they're taking it. I really like the look of the Optimus. Like you were saying, the proportions are very cool while still falling into this sort of legacy uniform toy line they've created. Mm-hmm. But I think if I'm going to get one of them only, I think it's going to be the Bumblebee. As I've said before, Bumblebee is not a part of my collection currently, so it would be, it would be my first animated Bumblebee. Mm-hmm. And I like it. I love little compact cars. I like the little buggy. I thought it was really cool during the PulseCon where they were talking about how they had like an actual car designer who put a lot of work into creating Bumblebee's mode based on like real car styling. So that really excited me. I just love little yellow compact cars. I don't know. It's a weird thing in me. It's my type.
Yeah, I mean, so that alt mode is perfect. I mean, the siren is a little further back than I guess it should be, but that's like the nitpick of nitpicks. But like I like that it's compact and chubby. You know, like I like a compact chubby car. You know, like a cliff jumper, like a Bumblebee. You know, like that classic mini bot car type of thing. And for that vehicle mode to unfold to be like a regularly proportioned deluxe figure is we've talked about the original Transformers animated toys as being like a feat of engineering of a feat of engineering. And that's what this Legacy United Bumblebee reminds me of. It's like, wait a sec, you got it to do two things in two different modes. That's insane. Like it's just crazy how well that works.
Totally. And another thing about the alt mode, the vehicle mode, there's, while still looking like a regular proportioned car, it's the elements of the headlights and the front grille still sort of nod at that like winking, smirking. You know, in animated, it's very clear, like the front of the car is like sort of animated and making facial expressions along with Bumblebee's emotions.
Yep.
This, while still looking like a real car, like when you turn it at a certain angle, it's like, oh yeah, there's that little smirk. There's that little Bumblebee stinker energy that we get from him in this legacy car.
Well, and some of the discourse that I've seen online about the Bumblebee figure, because again, it was leaked first, so that there was more discussion leading into it before the reveal at PulseCon. There was a surprising amount of discourse and disagreement about the side smirk smile on the face sculpt. And it's like, oh, do you even TFA, bro? It's like, I mean, it's like that.
Seriously.
Like if it didn't have that, like imagine if it just had like a flat Lego man mouth. It's like, what are we even doing? It's like that's, if you want to take all of the soul out of animated Bumblebee, that's how you do it. It's like, you just give him like a regular face. It's like, no, that side smirk smile has to be there. And I'm glad that absolutely. It is. And
and it's almost done in a clever way where it could almost just be like a little, like, you know, like a facial mark or something where you can still kind of, if you squint at it, it's still almost the battle mask face. But for the rest of us, we get the smirk.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I do think though that the head sculpt doesn't entirely match the body proportions, if that makes any kind of sense. I think like the neck chin thing is kind of weirdly disproportionately thick compared to the rest of it. But as I said, though, I think watching this episode kind of turned me around on it a little bit because, Bumblebee in Megatron Rising is kind of weirdly on model for that, where he has a weird head. Animated Bumblebee has a weird head because like it's a Jarek J. Wyatt chin, but it's also kind of more like a oblong helmet type of thing. So it's like you have to kind of get that rounded, flared aesthetic, and that's a little harder to nail than it is Optimus. I think the TFA Optimus is his face and head is a little more conducive to dialing down the stylization a little bit, but still keeping the essence. Bumblebee, it's like you have to either have it or not. Like but it comes across more as more neck than chin for me at least. That's just kind of my take on it. But again, I like the figure, I like the proportions on the body, and I think it's a feat that it can look so good in both modes. Both modes.
Worlds. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there you go. Our worlds are in danger. Right? There you go.
Yeah, this is where you got to drop in the Billy Madison soundbite of "You got a misshaped head."
You got a misshaped head.
Thank you.
You got it, buddy.
Please.
Oh my gosh! So now that Prime and Bumblebee from the animated universe are in Legacy United, so you have Prowl, right?
Yes, right here, in fact.
So how do you think that because I didn't buy that figure because like I wasn't super into Prowl at that point. And even now, I'll be honest, now that I've warmed to Prowl, I still don't feel an urge to get a Prowl figure, either a vintage or the new legacy one. But how do you think that Prowl interacts with the other two figures that you've seen comparatively?
Yeah, I was wondering that myself, and I meant to play with it a little bit and transform it a little bit and remind what I liked and didn't like about the Prowl figure. But I will say to your earlier point though, Prowl's a great figure, either from the animated line or this new line. Like it is a very cool. I do remember that. Like it's a very cool transformation. It's very cool how they go together. So I'm excited. I don't know. I haven't thought too much about it, but then I was like, oh yeah, we do have a Prowl, and I hope they have the sizing right. Like I hope Bumblebee doesn't tower over Prowl or anything like that. I want them to be kind of in line. I hope that's my only hope and dream for the new figures.
From what I understand, that Bumblebee figure is surprisingly small. Like I don't know if you've seen the
yes,
other
smaller the better.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen the other War for Cybertron takes on the mini bots, but like Cliffjumper is a small dude, Huffer is a small dude.
Oh sure.
And the pictures don't necessarily do it justice because you're taking a picture of a figure, so you almost need them next to each other. But like I was surprised by how small that Cliffjumper actually is. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're charging me $20 for a deluxe, and it's like that's the same price as that. Come on, man. But
if Legacy animated Bumblebee comes to my door and I take it out of its package and it's like the world's tiniest transformer size class, I'll be like perfect and give it a tiny little kiss and add it to my collection with great relish.
That's delightful. I love it. I also like relish, but no, I was gonna say something else, and I went for a joke and I fucked it up. So yeah, man. So enough toy talk. It's like we could talk about this stuff as
enough 3D. Let's come back to the 2D.
I know. I mean, to the point where I'm gonna have to start putting time codes in this episode where it's like, my God, they've been talking for a half hour. It's like I want to hear. It's been a half hour and Megatron hasn't risen yet. It's like, this is not the episode I was promised. But the episode
Mike B is screaming at his MP3 player right now. You need to get on with the show.
Yeah. Toys, yak, or something. I mean, that dude's always crabby about something. I mean, heart you, bro, but good Lord. All right. So let's jump right in the typical Michael Andrews fashion. We are talking about Megatron Rising Part 1, which is Season 1, Episode 15, our Episode 15 of Two Mikes, Two Furious here as we're talking about Transformers Animated. The original air date for this show was March 29th, 2008, and was written by Marcia Griffin. And looking at her entry on TF Wiki, this is the first episode of TFA she's written, but it's not the last.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff coming up. Wrote a handful, and more than a fair handful, of Transformers Prime episodes, for which she's also the story editor of that show. And she's also written episodes of Action Man, Kim Possible, and Michael Andrews' favorite Ben 10.
Yeah. Woo-hoo-hoo. Yeah, I was excited to her name tricked something for me a little bit in the back of my brain. I was like, okay, there's something there. So when I looked up, it was like, oh yeah, a lot of Transformers Prime episodes, and that got me really excited because I love Transformers Prime so much. And it made me think like maybe that's what we should talk about if we ever graduate from Transformers Animated, because Prime, they share a lot of DNA, and Prime is just so good.
Yeah. Clouded the future is. Well, let's focus on one thing at a time.
Yes.
Because I get the feeling like if we put it up as a poll, people would actually like have fights in the streets, because like I know folks are interested in us covering Beast Machines. Folks are interested in us covering Transformers Prime. But it's like, how do you cover Beast Machines without covering Beast Wars? And I don't want to do Beast Wars, so it's a lot. Maybe we'll just split the difference and do RID 2015 instead, or some such like that.
We'd put out a poll with 3 options, and each one would be 33.3%, which is what it would come down to.
Yes, exactly. And it was interesting because I recently had a conversation with my wife about Transformers Animated, because like I was like, I was
relationship, it sounds like.
absolutely. And I was talking about how much the show is resonating with me, and you know, a lot of the stuff I've litigated here on the podcast. And she asked me a very thought-provoking question. She's like, well, it was a statement. She's like, I'm surprised that you didn't watch it. And I was like, well, my crimes against the fandom are actually numerous. To quote our friend Lita there, in that there's probably more Transformers that I have not watched than I have. So, I mean, that's kind of the peril of being a G1er, is that, like, you know, I've dipped in and out, and I'm still relatively, well, I was going to say relatively young in this fandom, but that's not true. I'd say I'm more tween, maybe not quite adolescent. I mean, because like I started really participating in the fandom in like 2018, so it's that was like 5 years ago. So I don't think I could call that young anymore.
You are not a girl, not yet a woman in the Transformers community.
There it is. But yeah, I talked to her about the various things I haven't passed. I'm like, I you know, I didn't watch this, I didn't watch that, and I kind of gave reasons. And it's interesting. I hope I don't get canceled for the amount of stuff that I haven't participated in. But yeah, it is fascinating to me, reflecting on just how much I like. In a sense, this version of this podcast style, we could continue indefinitely, because there's almost all of the shows I haven't watched. You know, I mean, so really, like in 2019, when War for Cybertron trilogy hit, I watched that, and I'm watching Earthspark, but anything prior to that,
Fair game.
So yeah, exactly. So I mean, really, the sky is the limit. So anyway, just that little bit on that there.
Well, so let's jump right in again.
So we jumped out so that
we're jumping back in. The pool was a little cold. Now it's warmed up. We're getting back into it, and we're coming in the spirit of that. We're coming right off the last episode where Isaac Sumdac's discovery in the wilds of New Detroit from the end of Nature Calls is alive and well here in his lab. We a shot where we realize it's still blustery winter here in the city. Really like that they're keeping with that seasonal continuity. The next thing we see is Megatron's totaled body being hauled up into Sumdac's lab, coming right out of the floor. Pretty jacked up, this body of Megatron that we see.
The imagery there reminded me of Transformers 2007. Like when, after the Decepticons are defeated and they're being dropped off the aircraft carrier into the trench, just like not only not just the space garbage, but like wrecked space garbage. Like the design on this, especially when you see it in silhouette later, when spoilers alerts, you know, his body is regenerated, but like something about it being like on those cables kind of hanging and like all of like the bits hanging off of it. It felt very 2007 to me.
Well, I'm embarrassed because that is, and that plays a lot into Revenge of the Fallen as well, that sort of imagery. And they use that again. That totally is where that's from. Well, you know, in reverse, like probably the movie. Well, the movie itself didn't borrow it. So this would have been borrowing from the 2007 movie, which that's correct. Kind of its father a little bit, so that makes sense. But yeah, you're right. I didn't pick up on that now, and now I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely that imagery. But now we're in Sumdac's lab instead of hovering over the Laurentian abyss, and Sumdac is looking quite sinister as he puts on his goggles. There's something very Frankenstein about him, about to start work on Megatron, don't you think?
He loves it. He's super into this. He's like, oh man, I get a new thing to tinker with. And right. It's interesting too. And I didn't piece this together until now, because we know obviously that the entirety of Sumdac Systems, his entire robotic empire, he even says it later, is built on reverse engineering Megatron. The thing that I didn't figure out, and this even eluded me in our last episode when we were talking about what the mine is supposed to be there for and what Sumdac is looking for, it didn't occur to me that Isaac Sumdac has been looking for Megatron's body this entire time. So he's had the head to deal with. So that adds another bit of jubilation to when he finally finds it at the end of the last episode, but also how giddy he is as he approaches getting the chance to tinker with it. Cause this is something that's 50 years in the making for him. It's like, it's like Indiana Jones finding the dial of destiny. He's like, I've been looking for this my entire life. I've never talked about it before, but apparently I've been looking for this my entire life, I guess. But anyway,
well, I think we're kind of all, we're all sort of Isaac Sumdac right now. I mean, there's something exciting about, getting to go back to his, humble beginnings. He's sick of all the bureaucratic stuff and running this machine empire. Now he's like, this is where it all began. Me finding a piece of junk and reverse engineering it. This is like him back to his passion, really.
Absolutely. And this is where you get some of the Tony Stark stuff, like where at the end of the day, Isaac Sumdac kind of a gearhead. So it's like he's probably happiest when he's in his garage fiddling with stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also, so in this scene, we learn that the Sumdac Tower is running off a generator from the storm. And this generator, though powerful, much more powerful than our little gas-powered ones, it's not enough to power the building and upgrade Megatron at the same time. And Megatron loses it here. This is where he almost breaks character and almost reveals himself, because he really goes off on Isaac Sumdac when he finds out that he can't get his body back right away.
Right. And now that you said body back, I have no choice but to put in the TFU.info. Baby back ribs goes to Starscream, wants his body back. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back. Which I did not tell you I was going to do until I did it, but anyway. But yeah, so now we have to do that here. But I love this dynamic between Megatron because he's so close. He can taste it. It's right there. I mean, his body is right there, and it's like
nothing is more important than these upgrades. Do you hear me, human? Nothing.
Come on, you dumb human. Let's do it. And it's like, there's a Decepticon invasion coming? ? Yeah. Kudos to Corey Burton here, because like I love the oscillation in his vocal delivery, because like you said, he almost breaks, but then goes right back into like, frail, hapless Dr. Smith. He's like, I don't know, the Decepticon invasion.
He goes back to his theater kid roots and just break right back into character, right back into it. Sorry, the audience didn't break him. So he turns it around and my Autobot buddies, and he's just worried about the Decepticons' return, and that old chestnut. Meanwhile, Sari chimes in that she's tried to soup up the generator with her key and it didn't work. And this I thought was interesting, because it's like going back to that discussion we've had of, is the key consciously making choices as much as it can, and does it know that in doing this it would bring Megatron back online? Like, I wonder if that's the thing that we're not seeing, is like the key choosing not to work for Sari.
And it's interesting too, because Megatron, more than anybody else, seems to have that intimate knowledge of the Allspark, and we've speculated that what is the connection between Megatron and the Allspark, and with the key being a conduit to the Allspark, sometimes it's working for that purpose, sometimes it's working against that purpose, and its motivations are unclear. And you see a little bit of that here. Also, shouts out to another fried secretary bot, because Sari's like, hey man, I tried to fix it. Meanwhile, in the background, zap, 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 zap. It's like,
there's no shortage of secretary bots here at Sumdac Industries. They just have to, Sari's burning through them like the professor of the dark arts at Hogwarts or something. Just like, boom, we got another one. Boom, we got another one.
We've been without an interpreter since our master got angry with our last protocol droid and just
cut to Sari smirking.
Right.
But yeah, I think so. One of the things that this episode and this set of episodes does great is like really ratchets up the tension and forces everyone to make decisions they wouldn't normally make. So the combination of Megatron seeing his body and being so close but can't quite touch it makes him get back on his bullshit of like, I need that key. I need a plan to do it. I don't have time to like a sound wave type thing. I just need to get that GD key. So he tries the Lugnut angle once again, reaching out to Lugnut, who I guess doesn't even know if he's alive at this point after their last encounter. But from this, we do see that Lugnut and Blitzwing have pulled themselves together, as it were.
Right.
And they're kind of reduced to squabbling in the forest outside of the city. It's a little sad to see from the last time we saw them. They were very strong, you know, capable characters. Now they're sort of like scrabbling for food and you know, out in the woods. We also see from this their kind of tenuous alliance with their I love this. The supreme leader you have chosen.
Oh my God,
version
yes.
of Starscream.
Yeah.
Talk about delusions of grandeur on this guy.
Yeah. And to jump back a little bit here, like, so like you knocked it loose with Lugnut and Blitzwing squabbling. It's very much Five Faces of Darkness, where like the Decepticons are banished to Cha'ar and they're like squabbling over energon cubes. And so that's very much here to the point where like Blitzwing is like futzing around with Lugnut's shoulder. And I love this visual gag that like once he gets the shoulder in place, it's too heavy and he falls over.
Right.
Yeah, the shoulder is too heavy, and it just kind of comes to nothing because Lugnut's like, hey, man, that's my shoulder. And it's like, okay, fine, here you go. And Blitzwing's shoulder is just fine. It's like he just, I don't know. It's like, I think random Blitzwing was in the driver's seat for.
Yeah, it's a good bit.
Absolutely. I mean, I love the dynamic between those two bots because they're so diametrically different. Lugnut being such an aggressive loyalist, and Blitzwing, while he is loyal, he's a wild card. So I like how you can have those characters clash off of one another. But yeah, like you said here, you know, Starscream comes in, he's picking on them, and you get an immediate payoff from what we speculated would happen in Lost and Found. It's like, what's really going to happen when these guys' loyalty is tested for real? Well, I love this entire sequence, but it reminds me of the interaction from the first episode when like this gang of Decepticons are hanging out on the bridge. They've been hanging around each other for way too long. They're tired of each other, and Starscream is spouting off, and Lugnut is all too quick to come in and talk about how awesome Megatron is. Here, you kind of get a reprise of that in that Starscream is like, oh, hey, man, I'm the
supreme leader you have chosen to crush the Autobots and lead the Decepticons to victory.
And Lugnut very pointedly says,
You were not chosen.
Yeah. It really talks to the sense of Decepticons. They're sort of like the managers that have always wanted to be a manager, never wanted to like be a worker. You know, they all want to get to that place of power, but they don't really know what to do when they get there. Like Starscream just wants to be acknowledged as not just a leader, but the chosen leader. That people actually want him as the leader, and he's so obsessed with that he's not actually leading anything. He's not actually scheming or doing anything. He's out in the woods with these two lunkheads just goofing around. It's like, what's your plan here, dude?
Right. And that knocks loose. That was a huge plot point in the IDW comics where, spoilers alerts, Starscream is duly elected as leader of Cybertron.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And even then, and he wants it so bad. I mean, to the point to where, again, spoiler alerts, he has people murders people himself. You know, very lot of Game of Thrones political intrigue type of stuff. Very fascinating story. Yeah. But at the end of it, it's just like, well, now that I have the job, I don't really want to do it. It's like it's right. Kind of, you know, wanting is more important than having. That
absolutely.
That kind of thing. we were talking about Starscream's thirst for power, but not knowing what to do with it. That's entirely his character motivation here. He still wants the Allspark. For what? Who knows? The thing that's interesting in these couple episodes, there's a whole lot of, did you not remember what happened last time? It's like almost every character in this finale has a moment like that where it's like, did you not remember the last time you did this? That kind of thing. So it's fascinating to me that he's immediately back on his bullshit of like, well, we must go get the Allspark.
The Allspark is within reach and its power will be mine.
It's like, for what?
Right,
to do
right.
what? It's like
he's the thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, he's all ambition and no direction.
100%. Yeah, and this little exchange I think is great because while he's going through his rant and wants his little followers to follow him, Megatron chooses this moment to start speaking to Lugnut again and asks him to get the key. And I just think this is like a rather comical back and forth because for a while there, it's like Lugnut's talking to Megatron, but Starscream in his arrogance just assumes like he's talking to him. And, Lugnut starts, with the compliments and how much he loves Megatron, his glorious leader, and Starscream just doesn't bat an eye. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, all those great things.
I love it. I mean, like Lugnut actually kneels before Starscream, and Starscream's like,
yes, now that's more like it.
And it's like, oh man,
I was just tying my shoe actually. Yeah, so it's pretty wild, and it's also cool. But then the ruse is up because Starscream realizes that Lugnut's on another wavelength or something, and I like this from both a storytelling point and also just from a little moment point of we get a callback that Starscream was the one that destroyed Megatron. Like, this is so great because not only does it do the thing that TV shows need to do, which is refresh you about a little story point, but it's also so in character for Starscream he just can't help himself, even though he's trying to keep up this ruse that Megatron was destroyed by the Autobots. He just still revels in the fact that he was the one that destroyed Megatron. And he's pissed, right? He's like,
there is no Megatron! Megatron is offline! Terminated! I did it myself! Saw it myself!
And he knows for a fact, but it's also interesting that he's keeping the secret from those two.
Yeah.
And he kind of has to, right?
Yep.
Because, I mean, especially in the case of Lugnut, they wouldn't follow him knowing that he destroyed Megatron.
And I love this interchange with Blitzwing. I mean, it's interesting to have a conversation with Blitzwing because you never know what you're gonna get. It's like, are you gonna get icy Blitzwing? Are you gonna get random Blitzwing? And it's like, at one point, Starscream's like,
okay, what's his malfunction?
It's like, whatever. It's just, it's just a glitch. And
you're talking to a guy with 3 personalities. What do you mean? What do you mean? What's his deal?
Yeah, right. But what I think is fascinating, that the conclusion of this discourse is that first Starscream is like, wait a sec, somebody's just pulling your leg. And then he does this thing where he like whips out his blaster, like he's gonna like null ray this dude. And then he just ends up like scanning him, and he's like, wait a sec.
My scanners indicate Lugnut is picking up a communication signal from somewhere.
But I like that Starscream's first assumption is that someone is trying to deceive Lugnut and undermine Starscream's authority. It's like,
it's a very Scrooge-like thing, right? Or like, you can't believe that he's being visited by the ghosts of the past, like it is someone who's out to get me. I'm the mark for something. Mm-hmm. I'm so important, that sort of thing. Very, very Starscream-esque. Which of course Lugnut is all too happy to do. It's like,
and protect his life force at all cost.
Full simp at this point.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so from there we haul back to the Autobot HQ, and we see Prime and Prowl are worrying about increased Decepticon signals. You know, they're mobilizing for a full-scale assault, it sounds like. And this grown-up discussion is interrupted by model planes being flown by Sari and Bumblebee whizzing around. The two kids of the show, right?
Yeah. And Ratchet zaps one of the planes, and as per usual, reading the room is not Sari and Bumblebee's first best strength, where they're mad at the adults. It's like,
Hey, you made me lose the dogfight.
What'd you do that for?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think it's pretty funny, but it also, there's something weirdly true about it, because Bumblebee, you know, he says something to the effect of like,
I hate to be a downer here, but 5 of us against all of them? The odds aren't exactly in our favor.
and you could easily take that as like, you know, a point of laziness on Bumblebee's part, but it kind of makes sense. It's kind of like, well, what are we going to do? I mean, there is sort of like I'm going to go play games because we can't do anything about this.
right.
But Optimus, he still wants to do something. There's still Autobots at the end of the day. And this is where Bulkhead pushes Prowl into revealing that the Dinobots still exist. We have the long awaited payoff of this secret that they've been keeping from Prime. And it does not go over well with Optimus, let's just say.
Oh my gosh. Like, there have been times that I can relate with Optimus Prime. There are times where I've been critical of this version of Optimus Prime, but like in this batch of episodes, and his entire character arc is like, I have had enough of this shit. I have had enough of you assholes. And it resonates in a big bad way. But yeah, so I mean, let's go there. I mean, Bulkhead is like, you know, without even a second thought, he's like,
hey, maybe the Dinobots could help.
And Prowl's like,
yeah.
Bro, buddy. And to Bulkhead's credit, he was like, well, you told me you were going to tell him. And he tells Prime, he's like,
he told me he was going to tell you.
Right. A lot of finger pointing.
And it kind of reminds me from Back to the Future Part 2 a little bit. The I think he took his wallet guy.
Hey, did you just take his wallet? He just took that guy's wallet. I think he took his wallet.
You know, that kind of thing, just
yeah.
But like,
yeah, absolutely.
But Optimus Prime right here, it's like he's got like a little bit of eye twitch already, and he's like,
tell me what?
I mean, and you could see that simmering pot is already going up to a roiling boil. There's going to be some spillover here before too long.
Yeah, absolutely. And Prowl has to remind them that he rescued the Dinobots because he sensed a spark in them. It wasn't, you know, this wasn't a secret necessarily for a secret's sake, but it's kind of a cold splash of water reminder that they're Autobots and they're there to protect life, not destroy it. And it's kind of surprising to me that Prowl has to be the one, not because Prowl's character is totally in line with this, but the fact that he has to remind Optimus of this points to something bigger going on. And this tension between this whole scene is great because it's full of secrets and lies and tension. And it really, Prowl and Prime at this point kind of remind me of like Captain America and Iron Man circa Civil War era, where you're kind of surprised on which side of the fight that they're on, because Dick, like Prowl, wants to be like, hey, remember, we're supposed to be preserving life. And Optimus is like, you kept a secret from me. You kept those things alive. Like, this is ridiculous. And it's like, whoa, when did we have this shift?
Well, and Prowl is really pedantic here. You know, he because like Optimus is like, well, you know, I thought they were destroyed. You know, he also could have said, well, I thought they were missing or something like that, because it's still kind of unclear what was revealed to the Autobots about what the Dinobots' fate were. All they know is that they go to the box and they're gone. You know, it's like, were they destroyed? Were they kidnapped? From that day forward, it was very unclear, except for the folks that knew. But like Prowl, he's like, he becomes pedantic Ryan at that point, and he's like,
technically, I rescued the Dinobots.
And Prime just loses it. Like he is so mad that, like, I mean, I love the sound design here. It's like he's fuming mad and like his engine is revving. You can hear that engine revving as like he's really like, you know, breathing heavy and undulating and stuff. And this exchange is iconic because like he snaps and he says,
"The fate of the Earth and Cybertron hang in the balance, and all I've got to command are a bunch of undisciplined, insubordinate malfunctions."
And we haven't seen Optimus lose his temper like this before, and it's something.
Yeah, it's chilling. It's chilling the line delivery there, and that's why this thing is so great. And this is what I was going back to with Megatron, where like all the tension's getting ratcheted up. Like we're fast forwarding through a lot of logical decisions because we're just angry and nervous and scared on both sides. And I just think I wonder if we're seeing this outburst, not because Optimus keeps throwing around insubordination as a claim for his anger and that you've jeopardized safety. But I wonder if it's just we're seeing an insecure leader here. And he's more concerned that his orders weren't followed. He's kind of, this whole situation's kind of making him snap back to a more Academy bot that he was once long ago. And it's like, you know, nobody asked him to be the leader of this army. They were construction bots, you know?
Right. Well, and in this episode in particular, I think we see a lot of classic Optimus Prime tropes. We've jokingly before talked about, you know, how Optimus Prime is eager to be a martyr. And one of the things that we've talked about is like this version of Optimus is a younger dude, you know, and he doesn't have all the answers. He's still trying to find his way. But at the end of the day, at his core, he's still Optimus Prime. And one of the character traits that we're not necessarily a fan of with Optimus, but it is there in enough other media, is that kind of self-doubt, self-loathing. And I think you nailed it in that this outburst, he's projecting. It's like I don't think he's so much mad at his friends as he is mad at himself. I mean, he's probably rightfully mad at Prowl and Bulkhead, but like when even Ratchet has to be like, "Hey man, how about we find a lower gear here?"
Right. Yeah, well, I think that's again why this is such a great argument, because you can see that Prime is in the right in a lot of these things, but his motivations for it are all over the place. And I think that just makes the best tension, the best writing is, you know, when there's something simmering under the surface of the actual fight. I love the layers in this.
So Prime is still mad, but he decides that given the circumstances that they're about to face a full-scale assault, which incidentally, I do like that phrasing. That does go into my G1 score. There's this script is rotten with references that it's like, I think the folks making this episode may have seen that Transformers the movie a time or two. Just a hint. I mean, I don't know. But anyway, it's like, you know, he reluctantly decides, well, their resources. Let's see what the deal is with these dino bots.
He's going to make sure things are done right, quote unquote. Right. He's also pissed that, you know, now I need to go out there.
So I have a couple questions as we transition to Dinobot Island here. So we learn in this sequence that not only did Prowl and Bulkhead not tell Optimus about the Dinobots, but there was also this reference where like, oh, well, you know, the Dinobots really helped us out to take down Meltdown. And Optimus is like, Meltdown? What the fuck else? Good Lord. So
what else haven't you guys been telling me?
Which does come up a couple times later, where I think Optimus says a few different times, it's like, you know, what else is it going to be? What else aren't you telling me? But we talked about this at the time when we discussed Survival of the Fittest. I don't understand what the recounting of this adventure was. What was that debrief like? Because at one point in Survival of the Fittest, Sari Sumdac is kidnapped. And we know the entire adventure episode happens where we go to Dinobot Island and the Dinobots are there and Meltdown is there and those pretenders are there and Captain Fanzone is with them along the way. And at the end of it, everybody takes a ride back to the mainland on a very slow moving vessel. The end. How do they explain how Sari was rescued without it's like, I don't know. It's like I almost need that little piece of like Optimus being like, well, you told me that you rescued her from a cave. You know, it's like, you know, try to figure out what does that lie look like? What are the mechanics of this untruth? Because it seems like they've literally told him nothing about that adventure. And that's
right. Or maybe they just swung the complete opposite way and they're like, hey, you told me Sari was just upstairs with her cell phone turned off. Like, it's just something really like benign and lame that she didn't need rescuing at all.
Well, oh yeah. So they gaslight Prime into thinking that she wasn't even kidnapped to begin with.
Yeah.
It's like,
she was standing next to you the whole time. Where were you? Maybe you were the one that was missing.
Exactly. Maybe you went to an island full of dinosaurs and horrific creatures. Huh, maybe.
Well, maybe. Yeah, everyone thinks so. So that happens. And if you weren't uncomfortable enough in this fight, this next moment is what will get you because, this is another moment where Prime's pushed to do something he wouldn't normally do. His anger has driven him to take the key back from Sari officially. Like, we're done with having a little kid with it. I'm done with, people making mistakes and not following what I say. I'm taking it. And Sari's not having it. And she makes a good point.
It's mine. The Allspark chose me. And I've done a pretty good job protecting it so far.
But aggressively, this scene got me because aggressively Prime orders Ratchet to take it, remove it from her person with his magnets, and even Ratchet's uncomfortable with it. It's a very visceral scene of discomfort.
Well, and it's interesting how this whole thing plays out too, because like you see both sides where it's Prime's like, well, we can't trust you with the key chose me, and then Optimus is like,
after all, it's not a toy.
And then right on cue, the little robot paper airplane buzzes in, knocks Ratchet on the noggin. And Optimus is like, enough of the shit. Enough of the shit. I have had it. And like the most coldless, lifeless line delivery David K has ever given Optimus Prime. He's just like, take it.
Take it.
Oh, God.
Oh, chills. Yeah, it's great. I mean, that's the best thing about this entire argument is everybody's making great points. Yeah. Nobody's really right. It's just the wildest. It's really a great finale episode here because all this tension is built to this moment, and it's just, we get it. We get from these characters what they're all going through. Perfect.
And it's so interesting to have this conversation where we're spending entire minutes, like, talking about like the various beats and how we felt about it and what's going on, but we're not done yet. I mean, it's just like, and all of this happened in like 90 seconds of screen time. And so when I watched the episode for the first time, this is going to be a tangent here, so just stick with me for a sec. This feels like as good a time as any to mention it, because like I had a very exuberant, enthusiastic viewing of this. I have a buddy of mine at work that we've been watching Ahsoka together on Tuesday nights because it drops at 6 p.m. Pacific. So we get off work around 6 p.m. Pacific, and we've found ourselves a nice conference room with a really big TV that we could just like Chromecast Disney Plus to it. And we've been watching Ahsoka, and awesome. and it's been really cool. It's been like a cool moment for the two of us to bond together. And since it's after hours, nobody is around. Those viewings have gotten pretty raucous. We're pretty rowdy. Like we've gotten pizza a couple times, and it's like, so you see all the references and Easter eggs, and it's all like, oh, go, just like a lot of like, we're just like yelling at each other. And this is a recent discovery for me. I never thought to watch content in a conference room before. Usually we use it for conferencing and or awkward birthday parties and things like that where everybody like, so we celebrate like work birthdays and anniversaries. So our song is like, happy birthday and or anniversary to you. That kind of thing is
awesome.
It's delightfully awkward. But my point being is like, so for the first time with this knowledge in hand, I go into the conference room to watch a Megatron Rising, and it had that same energy, but I was completely by myself. This was like a thrilling episode for me. And like, there were many times where I was vocal to nobody. I watched it by myself. I wish at some point I had maybe set up like, I don't know, like some kind of like live stream or video or something just to get those reactions. Now there would be a bunch of dead times where I'm just like furiously scribbling notes as well. But like during this entire sequence from when Prime pops to when B takes off, I'm just like, oh my God, what is happening? It's happening. and I'm just like, oh my God. I mean, I was just like hopping up and down and like, being very vocal about it. So the last motion of this just going through the goddamn ringer, it's like we've seen secrets revealed, we've seen Prime lose his temper, we've seen the key get stolen from Sari, you see her running off in tears, and then this conversation between Bumblebee and Optimus, like as heart-wrenching as the Sari exchange was, this one broke me. Because like, Bumblebee's like, dude, I'm ride or die with this chick. She's been helping us the whole time. She's part of the team. And then Prime is not having it. He's like,
considering your own history of mistakes, Bumblebee, I wouldn't exactly call you a great character witness.
And it's just like, dude, the roast. It's like, I mean, he just burns this kid. And then Bumblebee fucking Dennis the Menace motherfucker, but he's not a dummy. He's like,
is that right? Well, let me tell you something, Bossbot. Considering the fact that we're stuck on this planet, outnumbered, with no idea on how we're gonna beat an army of Decepticons ready to fry our circuits at any second, I wouldn't exactly call you a great leader.
And it's just like, holy shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's one of those great moments where you didn't notice all these pieces getting pushed into play, and now we're seeing the checkmate moment, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is so good.
And all of this happens within, like I said, like 90 seconds of screen time. It's just like boom, 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 boom. It's like, by God, Bumblebee's got a folding chair. My God, where's the referee? Oh, that man has a family. By God.
Right. So Sari stormed off. Bumblebee's stormed off. Sari looks like she's on the verge of renouncing the Autobots as she flees Autobot HQ. And be careful what you wish for a little bit on her part, because she's snatched up by Black Arachnia once again. And meanwhile,
welcome back to the show, Black Arachnia, by the way.
Yeah. Good to see her. Yeah. And then we have Ratchet telling Prime to just let Bumblebee go, which is a risky move to tell Prime when he's in this mood. But also, Prime kind of doubles down on that insubordination and blah, blah, blah. And Ratchet's kind of very diplomatic about it and just says, we're not soldiers. We're not people you can order around. We're a stranded team of construction bots. Just let him go. He needs a little time on his own.
Right. Well, and that kind of, I don't remember if it's here or if it's later, but there's this whole discourse also with Bulkhead and Prowl, where it's just like, dude, we're big Ultra Magnus energy. It's just like, I'm not a soldier. I'm not worthy. We're just, we're just, roughnecks out here. And the thing, I don't remember if we have discussed this previously or not, because like I kind of analyzing this crew of Autobots, we know that they're a space bridge repair crew, and let's go down the line. We've got a Academy reject in Optimus Prime. We have a veteran but traumatized doctor, kind of like, we don't know what to do with this guy, so let's just put Ratchet on this crew. You have Bulkhead, who makes the most sense to be on this crew because, you know, he's big and
it's a human wrecking ball,
literally, and
well, not human,
well, and that's kind of what you need when you're breaking rocks and fixing space bridges. And you have Bumblebee, who's, you know, an insubordinate little snot that probably, like, you know, the Autobots don't know what to do with him. So it's like, oh, well, because this whole crew is like a mixed match of folks either being punished or being given something to do when they don't know what to do with them. The one that never quite fit for me is Prowl. I still don't understand why Prowl is part of this crew. I can't fan fiction my way through to figure out, with his ninja skills, but also maybe his crippling arrogance as well. Maybe he pissed somebody off. Maybe he pissed off the wrong guy at some point and said, well, you know, go fix some space bridges. But like, I thought about it. It's like, well, you know, Prime, we're not soldiers. It's like, that dude's a fucking ninja. Do you see them shurikens? Like on the regular, he's like, I'm like, that dude's pretty.
Those aren't construction shurikens. Like, that's not standard issue.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just like, I didn't really think to come back to that dynamic until now, you know, for lack of a better term.
Well, hold on to that. Let's just say. Keep that in your pocket.
Wow, are we gonna have to resurrect the secret spoilers, siren here? Wow, I love it.
Yeah, been a while since you tipped on one of those, but yeah, moving on.
Been a while.
Play me off, Mike.
Yeah. So Optimus tells Ratchet, who now has the key, to go to the ship, which we know is beneath Lake Erie, and Optimus refers to Dinobot Island. It's like, let's go to Dinobot Island. So I like that it's a name drop that I put in like half a dozen episodes ago. I'm glad that that's actually what we're calling it. So that made me feel pretty good there.
Yeah, and then you know, the other half of the team here, Sari is talking to Black Arachne again, and they're such a great dichotomy, and they keep coming to each other in moments where they kind of align. Like, it's bad timing, but good timing in a way for those two to come together, because we see understanding between them again. You know, Sari's down her luck, sick of the Autobots, and here shows up as the devil on her shoulder, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe you could help me find the Allspark. I'm done with the key. I want the Allspark, because again, and I love this too, because we don't know if she's we still don't know if she's in bed with the Decepticon cause or if she just wants to be her former self again. I really love that they're still playing with that duplicity in her nature.
Absolutely. And this exchange is critical, because again, it's like, it is interesting to think about it from top down, to where it's like this 8-year-old girl is holding her own against an actual femme fatale. And Sari gets the better of Black Arachnia more than once in these snappy banter exchanges. But I really like how Black Arachnia is laying it on thick. It's like, hey man, you know, we might have something in common. You know, it wasn't
not that long ago I was one of them, until they turned their backs on me.
And Sari's like, oh rump, I know what that's like. And but something to push back on something you said earlier with regard to being done with the key, because keeping in mind, this exchange starts with,
but as much as I'd love to trade snappy comebacks with you, frankly, I'm already bored. So why don't you just hand over the key and I'll be on my way?
And it's like, well, funny you should mention that. They took it from me. And that's kind of what.
Yeah.
So this, regardless of the outcome of Along Came a Spider, Black Arachnia apparently still wants the key for at least a brief time. Another one of these, like, did you not watch that last episode? I mean, we did 2 full episodes on it. I mean, like, there was so much discourse. We had to do 2 episodes on it. Come on, Black Arachnia. Didn't you hear that discussion? But I
actually think it's great because, you know, this moment where she's stuck without the key, like Prime in taking the key from Sari, Prime has inadvertently set, his former love interest, Black Arachnia, on the course for the Allspark. Whereas if the key was still with Sari, maybe that would have had a different outcome. Now she's just like, all right, let's go right to the source. And that puts them on a totally different trail.
Absolutely, because she even says explicitly,
the only thing that can make me normal is the power of the Allspark.
So I don't know exactly where she got that idea, where it's like, well, Sari doesn't have the key, so I guess I gotta go to that treasure chest myself, I guess. But it gets them moving, and so now Sari and Black Arachnia are a reluctant duo.
Yet again, I also think it's great too that these two have come together, because it reminds us of the Along Came a Spider episode, and it kind of digs that knife in of like, do you remember how much Sari respected Optimus, and when she wore her little Optimus costume, and she was really close with him in that, and we've just sort of seen those two part, and then this is like the ultimate parting of ways between those two. So I think it's a really smart move to bring Black Arachnia back and put them together, because it's a reminder of like, boy, you really cared about him. We both did. We both were big Optimus fans, and look what he did to both of us.
Right. Shared trauma is a really cool trope. You can get a lot of drama out of that.
So yeah, so now everybody's off on their own thing, and in the city, Ratchet dukes it out with Lugnut and Blitzwing. We're just right into some action there. They're looking for the key, and guess who has it? Mr. Magnets himself, Ratchet. So this scene, if we're talking visceral, this one too, I felt this one. Because he says,
"You'll have to pry it from my cold offline servo." And
Blitzwing obliges him.
Yeah. And it underscores again how so thoroughly outmatched the Autobots are. Like, it's super easy, barely an inconvenience for Blitzwing to get the key from Ratchet. It's like he barely puts up a fight. And it's just like, oh, fine. Yeah. He just ices him to the wall. Right. And that was one of those things in my private viewing. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like,
and then just tears off his arm.
And that's and you could see as Ratchet is encased in the ice, the grimace on his face.
Yeah.
He's just like, he's looking at this in abject horror. But yeah, I also,
if that scene had ended right there with just the arm getting torn off, that would have been like too hot for TV.
Yep.
Cancel the show. It's not for kids anymore. I think that's why they showed him kind of breaking out and having that moment of like, oh darn, the key's gone, because it's showing that he's okay. But if they just would have been like tore off the arm, cut to the next scene, my jaw would have been on the floor. Yeah. Or if I was a kid, I would be crying.
Yeah, it'd be like, oh my God, dismemberment and trauma. Again, TFA, here for the body horror. I mean, so much dismemberment, casual dismemberment. It's really occasionally upsetting. I did have two things in my notes. I had a reprise of So Many Missiles, !
Absolutely.
And then you get a reprise of the T-Poke. Well, I guess the Poke. Because we got to call it either T-Poke or the Poke. Because like if I say the T-Poke, then that's just ATM machine at that point.
Right. So right. Yeah, it's a great little drop here because it's going to play off big in the next episode.
Absolutely. So we cut to Dinobot Island, where this, again, it is just so awkward. Like, I could imagine the slow boat ride to Dinobot Island and nobody is saying anything to anybody. Because even like when this trio is trudging through the snow, you can, even if it wasn't wintry snow, you could feel the chill. You could feel that things are really icy between these folks. Pun fully intended.
Yeah. It is a great piece of, artwork to go along with the mood of how everyone's feeling. It's just perfect.
I love this setting. I mean, like I love that this entirety of the story takes place over winter. Like, it's just, I mean,
it's unique and it's cool and it fits somehow. Like, it really is all there.
And it creates a literal chilling atmosphere. It's like, it's weirdly appropriate that it's cold at a time where our characters are left cold.
Yeah. So Prime here tries to, again, being kind of forced to do stuff. He hastily tries to use diplomacy to get Grimlock on his side. And I was going to ask you, Mike, is this reminiscent of something in G1? Because to me, it was definitely reminiscent of that scene in Age of Extinction, defend this family or I'll kill you, where they're really at odds, but he needs Grimlock on his side.
Yeah, it didn't necessarily strike anything G1 to me, especially the way that the outcome goes. And it's interesting because one, David K is just talking to himself here. I do like this, where it's like, Grimlock and Optimus are just talking, but like the dynamic between Grimlock and Optimus has always been interesting across different iterations. Like in G1, they had a very tenuous, contentious relationship, to say nothing about the Marvel comics, where Grimlock is just straight up a usurper. But it is kind of some of that Age of Extinction movie vibe. But one of the things, and it's all subtext. I don't have anything to point to, but there's this underlying tension of these characters just naturally do not like each other. Like there's a vibe from Optimus where he's almost disgusted by these Dinobots. He's almost offended by their very presence, because like there's something in his tone when he's just like,
"We've come to talk. We will not hurt you."
Yeah.
And I think the Dinobots sniff out that insincerity instantly. And I think that's kind of what puts them at odds. But you get more tension between Optimus and his friends when the Dinobots reveal themselves in their robot modes. And again, Prime just can't help himself. It's like he's kind of like on a, I don't know, existential skid. Like he's lost it so much to where I don't think reconciliation is even on his mind. I don't think he even cares who he offends, or like the emotional damage or the wreckage or wake that he leaves behind, because he turns to Bulkhead. He's like, "Oh,
something else you forgot to tell me?"
And that line could be casual or even with like an easy shrug or almost a smile. But here it's dripping with snark. And Optimus Prime is not a snarky character, but like all of these lines are just like, I mean, again, it almost kind of has that Dante Hicks Clerks, like, I'm not even supposed to be here today energy.
Yeah. Well, it's petty. It's a little bit petty for Prime to kind of bring this up at this point. And I think that just points more to his insecurity. And, it's more about how secrets are being kept from him than about kind of doing the right thing and moving forward here. That's what's kind of making this Prime in this episode interesting to me, because he's doing the right thing. He knows ultimately what the big strokes need to be, but he's out here fucking around on Dinobot Island because, he's got to do things right. And I guess I got to shape things up around here. Like, right. And we see later, he should have been back in the city. If he hadn't had to be micromanaging these two, things wouldn't have gotten so out of hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, to reiterate, you see this version of Optimus is young. He's learning. And I think that's interesting. This is a young manager that doesn't know what he's doing type of thing, biting off more than he could chew, from the perspective of like, everyone else is lost except for me. He's River Phoenix, Indiana Jones, basically at that point. He's like, everyone's lost except for me. And it's like, so he's so self-sure and assured of himself that he doesn't even believe in this mission, but he's like, I don't trust anyone else to do it, so I have to do it myself, which ends up, again, as you said, ends up being a huge mistake. But I do like this exchange here where Optimus is like, "Hey man, we're not here to hurt you." And one of my we saw this in Survival of the Fittest with regards to Meltdown. It's like when Grimlock flips it around, it says
Dinobots hurt you.
It's like, we're not here to hurt you. Well, yeah, we're here to hurt you. It's like, I love those types of exchanges. And Prowl really tries to be like, he's really trying to Chris Pratt it here. He's all like, whoa, man, putting the hands up and stuff.
Oh my gosh. I need to commission that artwork from somebody of Prowl having the hand out and like the animated Grimlock bowing down to him. I need that in my life now.
And there's 3 of them too, so that could work. Because there's 3 Dinobots and 3 Raptors, and it's like,
we gotta talk to somebody about that.
Yeah. I like that a lot. But it's like, well, hey man, remember, like we're the good guys, and Grimlock does this thing, and it's a reprise of what we, it's like, cars and trucks bad, that kind of thing. But we get. He since amended it. He's like,
cycle and car robots, good.
Truck robot, bad. He's still he's still a monkey, not truck. He's still a Beast Wars fan here.
Exactly. It really is kind of like AI machine learning at this point. Like he had his first if then statement, and now it's like subtly broken down. Like it really is kind of cool to see Grimlock sort of learning here.
And Prowl's like, no.
Truck robot, good. Our friend.
We're all kind of pissed at him, if I'm being honest, but he is pretty okay.
It'd be funny if he just did like a little hand wave. He's like, good-ish, good adjacent. Certainly lawful good, but still, it's like.
Right. So this back and forth goes on a little bit, but I think what's really interesting about the scene is that ultimately it doesn't work. Even Prowl and Bulkhead can't seem to swing the Dinobots to their side. I think that was, it's kind of a ballsy move to have this sort of mission to come out here and then it doesn't work. Like, I think that's a really kind of adult, mature storytelling. And worse, now they're going home empty-handed from this. And if things couldn't get worse, Ratchet chimes in and it's like,
the key's been stolen.
So, like, talk about kick Optimus while he's down.
Yeah, and this is where you get some real self-loathing Optimus here.
It's great.
Yeah, and he kind of deserves to eat some shit at this point.
Yeah, things are going really bad for him. The vocal performance here is just dripping with the cracks in the heroic veneer, right? Maybe Bumblebee was right. I'm not cut out to lead this team. Like, it's really subtle, it's really soft, and I really like it.
Yep.
And back in the city, things are no different. They're also going from bad to worse. Starscream's laying siege to Sumdac Tower, the source of the signal.
Can we talk about this transformation sequence? Because, y'all trying to get lawsuit here. It's just like, I'm like, so first of all, you get the speed lines, which I like. You see Starscream go through the motions there, but then his legs flip out, and I'm like, so I'm in a dark conference room by myself in the middle of the night, and I'm like, you can't do that. Do you want to get sued? So he goes full Gearwalk mode for just a sec, looking like a Macross or Robotech whatever.
Right.
So it's like, I mean, that obviously was done on purpose, which is so funny because Starscream didn't even have that transformation scheme. That's more of a Jetfire situation, but still, it's like, I mean, again, they put that in there deliberately.
They did. For sure.
But regardless, it is super cool though.
I'm sure your little audio ears pricked when his blasters went off, because that was straight up the G1 laser sound.
Yep.
So cool to hear that.
Very, very cool stuff. I love it.
Yeah. So he flies in, blasts a hole in the tower. It reveals Megatron's head there in Sumdac's lab. And this scene surprised me in its subtlety. I didn't know, even as many times as I've rewatched it, I couldn't remember exactly how this plays out. But there was something sort of stoic about these two, standing in front of each other. you know, is great. It has that sort of reminiscent of like Poe Dameron when he first interacts with Kylo Ren in Force Awakens, and probably some other more classic duos. I don't know why my brain went right to that.
Sure.
But I just loved it. And there's that moment of silence, and then Megatron says,
"Look what the capacitor dragged in."
Wow. Like, of all the places that first line could go, I loved it. I loved what they did with it.
And this whole back and forth is magnificent. It's like, he's like, oh man, Megatron, you're alive. And you look terrific. It's great. And
it's just dripping with tension and snark and compliment and betrayal. Like, it's all there.
Yeah, both of them. It's like, oh yeah, you know, you look so great. And Megatron's, it's like, oh, how good is it to be reunited with my most devoted and faithful subject? Like, oh, in my time of need. It's so funny. But but it's interesting in this whole thing, because like you mentioned that moment of silence, and it makes me think of prize fighters trying to like feel each other out, you know, just kind of like, it's like, okay, so who's going to make the first move? And it reminds me of the Marvel versus DC comic book from the 90s. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but basically, like, it's, you know, Marvel and DC had a crossover, and there was votes on like who would win in the matchups. But like, one of my very favorite fights in that comic is Batman versus Captain America. Because basically they're like two dudes. They're like at the height of human potential. And I remember fans being really pissed off about it at the time, because it's one of those things. It's a fight that's not really a fight. It's a lot of them just like staring at each other. And then like one throws a blow and the other one blocks it. You know, the other one throws a kick and the other one blocks it. So it's a lot of like just tension. I mean, and this goes on for like 9 panels of them just like staring at each other. And it's almost like both of them are having the fight in their minds and knowing what all the moves are, so much so to where they don't actually have the fight. So it's like something else like intervenes or some such like that.
It's very Kill Bill, samurai, old Western gunfight. Like there's just that right amount of, you know, we don't need to fight. We're such fighters. We don't need to fight even at this point. And in such a relatively short time, we just get that dynamic of they both need each other in a way, but they both hate each other. I just think this is some of the best setup between these two sort of legacy characters that we know so much about, and we know that they have this tension. I think this show in particular does a good job of like fueling why that's there.
Yeah. So, and Starscream continues. He's like, hey, man.
I would have come sooner, oh grand and illustrious leader. But naturally, we all assumed you perished at the hands of the Autobot scum. What great joy to discover you did not.
And actually, that is becoming one of my favorite Starscream phrases, because Tom Kenny's Starscream says it all the time. Autobot scum. I just like it. He says it so often, and it's great. But yeah, and Megatron's like, oh, well, you know.
Yes, delight is written all over your face.
But like the thing that was really popping for me is that this is a conversation about loyalty and betrayal. And it's interesting that Megatron knows that Starscream betrayed him, but Starscream doesn't know that Megatron knows that Starscream. So it's interesting where they're just kind of like, again, competing monologues and really trying to feel each other out. It's like, what does this guy know? What doesn't he know? So when Starscream says something about the Autobots and Megatron's like, oh yeah, right, the Autobots. That's you're still going with that, huh? All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah. It's fantastic. It's fantastic dialogue.
It's so good. And again, like we're spending entire minutes pulling it apart, but all of this just happened so fast and in such quick succession. Just delightful. I mean, again, like the vocal performances in this show are terrific. And in this episode in particular, I feel like everybody brought their game for the finale. This feels like we're not leaving anything out on the field. It's so good.
Absolutely. Yeah, so this presents a weird situation because with Ratchet dismembered and the other bots away on their recruiting mission, little rogue Bumblebee is the best candidate to take on Starscream at the tower. This is his hero moment, his time to shape up, and we definitely see it in Bumblebee's resolve. He has that moment of like, yep, it's me, I got to do this. And it was very like mature for what we've seen of Bumblebee.
Well, and he's even perceptive enough to call for help. Like, he's brave, but like he's learned some of that lesson from Nature Calls, where it's like, yeah, I need help, but I also need to be brave. You know, that kind of thing. So it's like,
yeah, it's a nice payoff of what we've seen.
And I love this so much. He's like,
trouble at Sumdac Tower. It begins with a star and ends with a scream.
I think that's a great way of putting it, because Starscream hasn't been seen for since by the Autobots, hasn't been seen since the pilot. Basically, like, he disappeared in an explosion of allspark energy, and for all they knew, he was dead. So
yeah. And I was gonna say, my partner Kate was watching this episode with me, and that moment really like pricked her ears. She kind of really liked that starts with star, ends with scream thing. That was really fun. I think that's a great little line. And from there, if I may, it cuts to like my favorite transition of the entire show, maybe the entire series, because you have this sort of like Shakespearean comical scene where Starscream's just sitting there next to Megatron's head and says something to the effect of,
"Oh, what a pity, my liege, to see you in such a helpless and unprotected state. Why, practically anyone could just walk right in here and terminate you."
And then just instantly Bumblebee just Kool-Aid Man's into the building, right? Just stingers blazing.
Just screaming his face off. It's so good.
Oh man, it's one of my favorite. That was a big cheering moment for me. And I don't know if I was like laughing, crying, or just screaming, because
I had a big reaction to that, but like I had just as big of a reaction to the scene before that. First of all, Bumblebee calls for help, and then again, Optimus being old Dante over here, he's like, "Will this day ever end?" It just keeps getting better.
Yeah.
But like with this intercutting, you see Bumblebee is moving quickly, but you don't quite know why, because like the background is moving very quickly, but he's in robot mode, and you kind of see his shoulders and his arms moving, and it becomes my favorite trope, wheels on heels, because dude's been healing this whole time, just as he goes to squeeze himself into this elevator. And I'm like, yeah, wheels on heels. I love it.
Party.
I mean, man,
awesome.
we've got so many button ideas for Two Mikes, Too Furious merch here. I mean, we got to have like so many missiles, wheels on heels.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. So Starscream I think this is funny because Starscream kind of laments that the thing he's most mad about is that Bumblebee ruined his speech, not that he just busted in guns blazing.
You interrupted my speech!
That happened, but Megatron we see has just had enough. And this is where Sumdac appears, and Megatron keeps up the ruse for even just a little bit longer. Now we sort of see him like enjoying his performance as this, this Autobot. Like he's got one chance to keep up this character one last time, and he takes it. But time is running out, so we can also see him trying to kind of speed things up and move along. And Sumdac says he'll do his best to get Megatron back online. And Megatron says something to the effect of, "I will too." So
he grabs like an iPad or something like that, or some
right,
because he doesn't want to miss the show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so B and Starscream duke it out a little bit, and while Sumdac works, Lugnut comes face to face with his true supreme leader. It's kind of a beautiful moment for them, the sort of seeing him after, it's almost like that dog that's been crossing the United States. It's like a homeward bound journey situation. Getting to see him again. So yeah, ultimate simp gets his moment, and it kind of finally proves that I love that moment where I didn't even know I needed it, but it kind of proves that Megatron was there. He wasn't just hearing a voice in his head. He wasn't crazy. Now people kind of have to believe him.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I love this exchange. And like, so basically like Lugnut is all like, we have come for our glorious leader. And Megatron is almost apathetic. I don't know if that's the right phrasing for it, but he's like,
I am here, Lugnut.
It's like it's just like, yes, worship me. And then it's so good because like Lugnut, I wrote this down in my notes. Lugnut falls to his knees like Wayne and Garth before Alice Cooper.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy! We're not worthy! We're stuck!
Talking about
perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
But then he's got this great over the shoulder line. Wait a sec. What happened to your body? To which Megatron responds for like the third time from a character in this episode.
Long story.
That
right.
And again, we're really getting into that 2000 and late vernacular here. Everything's just like, over the shoulder delivery. Long story.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I love that Lugnut in this moment is kind of playing the same role that Bulkhead had earlier in the episode, where he kind of spills it about the Dinobots. Now Lugnut sort of lets it out to Sumdac that like he's the leader of the Decepticons. It's a nice little kind of bookend moment for that. But yeah, as to borrow some of Megatron's phrasing, the capacitor's out of the bag. Now Sumdac knows that he in fact is the leader of the Decepticons. Couldn't be more opposite from what he told Sumdac.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because like first Bulkhead is using his claw hand to kind of smush down on Sumdac a little bit. It's like, no, we kneel to Megatron around here. That's kind of how we do.
Yeah.
But because of because of like the animation and stuff, I wrote down he's smushing him like a mellow marsh. Or is it a swamp mellow? Or is it a marshmallow? I mean, you get a lot of springiness as Lugnut is kind of pushing down on little Isaac Sumdac's rotund body there.
Yeah, and I mean, from a human standpoint, it probably would have squashed him, but there's in the animated world, we're just like, yeah, that seems like how Sumdac would be, kind of squishy. Seems right.
Yeah,
the physics are correct there. Yeah,
very springy, like a sponge cake or something like that. I don't know, man. Maybe he's got an adamantium skeleton. Maybe he gave himself some of his own robotic upgrades or something like
be
that.
Really interesting. Yeah.
I don't know. But as you said, the capacitor is out of the bag, and this exchange is as funny as it is heartbreaking, because like poor Isaac Sumdac, what a, for as brilliant of a scientist and engineer as he's a real dummy, because he's like, Decepticons, but wait a second, you told me you were an Autobot aside from like the red eyes and all of that other stuff.
And towering over them in every way. You're just the lowly Autobot in the group that everyone forgot about.
And yeah, this is great. He's like,
and I hated every moment of that humiliating charade, but no more.
Right.
And
there's comedy and tragedy here, right? Because this moment where it gave me chills a little bit to be like when Megatron kind of invites Sumdac to stay and watch, since he couldn't done it without him, right? Like that's sort of the ultimate slap in the face you can do to this guy.
Well, and to take that even a step further, Lugnut puts Sumdac in the hand chair so that he could bear witness.
Yeah.
And of course here you get as Blitzwing inserts the Allspark key into Megatron's head, you get a reprise of the classic Sumdac gasp. And this sequence is pretty cool of Megatron reconstituting his body.
Yeah. Oh, there's something just sort of like the coils glowing, the frayed wires and cables all cinching together in this, macabre rebirth that reemerges Megatron. Like it's perfect for this.
It's a lot of like Tetsuo the Iron Man type of situation too, because he's like, just like grabbing like, the steel and bolts out of the wall, tearing this lab apart for materials for this body. And I couldn't tell if it was a sideways reference or not. I was hoping at an episode that is rotten with Transformers the movie references, I was hoping for maybe a little more purple, or maybe like a green wireframe grid pattern, or even maybe like the Michelin Man type of thing. But I could see that all of those things would have been too on the nose. Like, could you imagine, like, it would... I've talked myself out of it. It would have been kind of lame if suddenly it turns to like the black background with the green wireframe and it's all purple glow, and then the Michelin Man comes up. Though I would have liked to have seen like the full scan to see like all of his innards and stuff. That would have been pretty dope. My point being is, like, it didn't need to be that sequence, and I'm kind of glad that it's its own thing. I love the cascading of sound effects. Like, anytime like wires are cinching together, it's like, you know, it's like, I like it when you can take the transformation sound and do some different stuff with it. Terrific sequence.
Totally. Yeah, and everything coalesces. You know, we talked kind of about moving your pieces into play. Now everyone, the key players, are all back in the city. You know, the music swells, the tower glows red, and from its ashes, you know, erupts the Decepticon Phoenix himself. Megatron just blows the fucking roof off Sumdac Towers, and just the most metal entrance possible. And we end on it to be continued with Prime just looking mortified at his return.
Yeah, I love this. Because like, it's so much happens. Again, I love the sequence so much. Like, the sound design rules, the visuals are great. But Starscream is up on the roof with Bumblebee, and he's about to finish him off. And then, as you said, you see the explosion. But like, Prime says something. No, it's Bulkhead. Bulkhead says something to the effect of like, "Well, I guess Bumblebee didn't listen because he's stuck in that thing." And even as Megatron has emerged, like, it's happening, Optimus can't help himself. He's like,
yes, it's becoming quite a habit.
You know, where he's like,
let it go, man.
Yeah, it's like, stop it. But like, I love this final sequence where Starscream is shocked, like, oh gosh, but Optimus Prime terrified. Like, he's got like the glistening anime eyes, and just the look of abject fear and terror tells you everything you need to know about the return of Megatron. And yeah, that is the end of part 1 of Megatron Rising.
Oh, beautiful.
So good.
You know, yeah, the whole build up to this, even calling the episode Megatron Rising, like, everything is just perfect here. This is exactly what I need from the end of this part 1.
Absolutely. And then, so yeah, it just picks right back up into part 2. And before we jump into part 2, do you need to go refill any beverages? Do we want to want to be a guest on the show? Send us an email to mikes2furious@gmail.com. Interact with us on social media. You can follow 2 Mikes 2 Furious on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 2 Mikes 2 Furious.